let's get it cracking. Let's be quick with this too. Yeah, there's nobody live right now, so if you're hearing this, you're listening to the replay. In which case, you already know how long this is going to go. Hopefully, not long though. Uh, Also, this is something that I'm. There's no way that I'm the first person that's played this game that has chosen to do this very simple calculation to figure this out. I don't even really want to call it a calculation. You don't even need any form of calculator to figure this out. Uh, but I haven't really seen too many people point it out or talk about it or anything like that. So I thought I'd take 2 minutes here and just go ahead and do this. If it weren't for this specific thing here, we'll do the English version, the contracts pack untradeable. If it wasn't specifically for this being in the store, uh, just shy of 10 days left, and I forget. I'm pretty sure you get this. You can do it once a week. So I will purchase one of these during this little currently live broadcast that's meant for a replay tomorrow for you, because I'm pretty sure I haven't done it this week. But well, again, who knows what that week is? If you have to wait 7 days or more since the last time you bought it, it may actually be unavailable for me. And outside of the other um, essentials packs, I don't have enough coins at the moment to get anything else. But just follow me here. You can see up on the top left, it says this pack contains 20 gold contracts. Under probabilities, it doesn't really kind of say that. It's not really supposed to. Probabilities are supposed to be drop rates as far as minimums of what you can get. You got a 100% chance of getting gold. It actually says plural gold contracts, which was sort of a change from how they normally do listings of probabilities, but it doesn't matter. It's true no matter how you say it. You're going to get exactly 20 untradeable gold contracts in this pack. So they still list the probabilities for those people that, I don't know, can't seem to follow or whatever. But point is, you get 20 of these things. I get it that they're untradeable. I don't want to get too much off into that little rabbit hole on the difference between an untradeable contract and a tradable one. But the point is, if you were relying on these, and let's say that they made these available at all times, obviously understanding that you only get to do it once a week, and you certainly might need more than 20 contracts during the course of any particular week. But that's what you get, and that's the cost. So 2,000 coins for 20 of them, pretty easy to do that math. You're talking about 100 coins cost per contract for you, right? Okay, so everyone can agree with that. That's basically what that is, right? 20 items, 2,000 total coins. 2,000 divided by 20 gets you 100. Now, if they didn't have this, you'd have to go off of values in the marketplace. Those tend to vary. I know I tend to have an abundance of these contracts, mostly because I don't play competitively. And so for those that do, they need the contracts way more than I do, and I'm able to sell them on the marketplace. And they might go as low as 180 per on a particularly on a quick sell value. Um, that's not the proper term for that, but a low buy now value, all the way up to, I'm not exactly sure, but I'm pretty sure I got close to say 500 coins for one contract, and the average tends to be more so in between those two. And I only bring that up to say that generally when I am selling them and they go for a little bit more than the 100 coins, and obviously those are in the tradable format as opposed to untradeable, because the quick sell value on the contracts, which I could try to maybe get in and show you here, is 80 coins this year. That means that in fact you literally could not sell any contract that's tradable for 100 coins or less. You could put them up with a starting price of its quick sell at 80 with whatever the buy now is, and if there's only one person that comes in and bid, they could bid as low as 80 or exactly 100 and get it for that amount. It's unlikely that that would really get off very often. More likely there'd be somebody else that would notice that and would notice the value, and would look to put in at least one additional bid above that to bring the price up. But the bigger point that I'm making there is that it's essentially impossible to put something up for 100 coins on the buy now price. The lowest that you can do is the minimum starting price has to be the quick sell value, which is again it's 80 coins this year, and the minimum buy now has to be an increment of 50 coins above that starting point. Now I'm starting to feel like I'm talking way too much about things that I'm not actually showing on the screen. That might be a problem, but just kind of trust me for now, unless I jump into it later. The the lowest that you can sell it for is 80 coins, and you have to add 50 on top of that for the lowest buy now price, and that's going to be 130 coins. So that's essentially the lowest that you could do, and so if this pack in the store didn't exist, all of the numbers that I would use here, I would have to kind of reevaluate with using 130 as the more likely scenario for a standard price for one gold contract. But we're going to stick with the 100 partially just because that's what you can get in the store, and that's where a true derivative value is going to come from, as well as the fact that I guess there is a chance that some market purchases can be had from between 80 and 130 and could potentially even average to around 100. It's very unlikely. Point being, usually for tradable contracts in the market for now, you're going to pay more than 100, but it's not as relevant when you have this still available in the store. So again, 2,000 coins. There's 20 of them. It's 100 coins per. So that's the number that we're going to go with. And when this makes sense, this is not my normal team. I'm looking to go ahead and where's the one that I wanted to use? Actually, I don't want to use it for them, but my bad. I thought, okay, we'll go with Lundqvist. So I'm looking to get this. And as you can see there, even after quick selling quite a few contracts in the last, I don't know, week or so, I'm still up above 600 total. This includes tradable and untradeable. If you've never actually gone in and clicked, in case you're like, where are you? I clicked X on actions for the card, and then from there, on this particular card, there's only 4 options. It's apply consumable, substitute, remove from lineup, and player info. Player info is essentially the same thing as if from here clicking R3 pulls up the info. So that's what that is, see? And then you can also go to the bottom and do that. Specifically going into a menu to be able to click player info is something that you have to do in some of the screens in this game. So it is nice to know that that's kind of what that is, right? So that's that particular player card. As you see on the bottom there, bottom left of the not of the full screen, but of the info part of the screen, it says contracts 5 games. Hopefully you see that there. That's going to be important here. And then in terms of when you're on the team lineup screen, between substitute and remove from lineup, essentially same deal. The only real difference there is that remove from lineup literally removes it, puts an open spot in there as well as into any, well, I should say, and normally it's supposed to be as well as also any of the special teams lines that particular player card was in at that time. Difference between that, because then that just opens up a spot and you got to fill that spot, and then usually look and ensure that the special teams lines have in fact been filled in, particularly if you're only making that one removal followed by an addition. Generally quicker to do than that is just to click on substitute, and it will default to pulling up cards that you have that fit that specific position. So in this case, a center. But you can change that as long as it's offensive players playing on offense and defensive players playing on defense, and then obviously goalies can only play goalie. That's all fine, right? But we're gonna go with apply consumable to hammer this point home. I apologize. That's what happens when I talk. So 1,608 contracts exactly is what I have at the moment. Again, I feel like a pretty decently high number, even after quick selling a fair amount of these to bring some coins up, to open up some packs that didn't really get me great returns, in my opinion. You see a couple of things that I feel like are worth pointing out here. Number one, the 4 contracts / consumables that you see in the screen all happen to be untradeable. We'll get to that in a second. And then at the bottom, it's not just that you get to see the total number of contracts if you go into this particular page, but you also see the current rating. It says 5. I think for people like myself that did this, way more frequently, way many, just I was more comfortable with this having played as much as I did in FIFA. Not to say that this specific sort of construct was never a part of the NHL series. It just wasn't necessarily, in my opinion, as focused on by most people who played it as much as it is for those that play in FIFA. So really the only point is that I wanted to show in the info screen that you saw this particular card here for me has 5 games on its contract left. So that's why you see here it says current rating of 5. Normally you're going to end up in this screen, whether you're like me or not, only when you're looking for somebody who has in fact expired their contract. And that was part of what sparked me to go ahead and do this, even though I've been thinking about it anyways, is that I just had to increase the lengths on a couple of contracts for this particular lineup that I'm only doing to try to get this final for me today Gatorade challenge collectible to get another gold collectible, even though there'll be another weekday challenge tomorrow, and usually there's 12 opportunities to get those and not 10, which is what we have so far. But the point is, I just want to get this done, and also my dailies include, make X number of hits. 2 things that I would have accomplished by now if I were doing that as opposed to creating this silly little video. But the reason why I was bringing that up is when they were expired, it's not only that you see on the player card underneath, that top right where it's showing the diamond or diamonds for synergy or synergies that are active or not. This wasn't, again, one of the many things I guess that I'm pointing out in this video that had nothing to do with the title or what I was going with here. But on this one, if you can see that, if it's big enough for you on your screen, you should be able to see that the top synergy is listed as green and the second one is white on the diamonds for Lundqvist, specifically on this lineup. So one of his 2 synergies are activated. Under that, it indicates his position and his player style. And then under that would indicate whether it was untradeable, whether it was out of contracts, or whether it was injured. We're really just focusing on the contract aspect of it for this. And so when they're out of contracts, it shows the little kind of, for me, it looks like a black circle and sort of a, it's a pen. Let's just leave it at that, I guess. So it's trying to indicate that that's what the contract is. You got to be able to sign on the contract with a pen. So it's going to give you that icon. It's also going to prompt you a million times, particularly if you try to get into a game that you have, players at such and such position that have their contracts expired. And so as long as you're not talking about a loan player who has expired their loan, and it will show that completely differently, if you were to come into this screen and take 2 seconds to look at it that most people don't do, it should be indicating current rating of 0 as opposed to 5 that you see down there at the bottom. But for every card and every contract that you add, the rest of it is always going to be the same, right? So the fact that this particular card has 5 games left on its quote-unquote current contract, not necessarily as important, right? That number could be as low as 0. It could be as high as, for me, I guess, I could, I guess I could, it'd be so stupid, but I guess it'd be decent content if somebody was actually trying to create content, right? So I guess they probably would. It's the same houses that builds FIFA, so they probably max you out at some point, right? Like at 99 contracts or whatever. But supposedly having 1,600 of these things and them giving you 10 games added on to each one, I would be able to have his remaining contracts be 16,000 games. And I feel like there's no way that they would allow you to go that high. It'd be interesting to see, but I don't think they would do that. I think they'd limit you at some point. If I had, I don't think I have anybody on here again because this is not my regular team. There are very few people on here that are on my actual squad. Would I go through 100 games with more rates? Possibly. Um, how many I didn't even look to see how many he has to start with. So he's at 7. Huh. All right. Let's also check to see how far over until they run out of untradeable. I like it. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and do this. I had no intention of doing this, but I guess you can, and we'll see what it stops you at. We're starting at 7 to start with, and every time that you add one of these consumables, it adds an additional 10 games to its contract. So you see there, it's for him specifically, it's starting at 7 games left. We're adding on 10. The new rating is gonna be 17. Um, the only issue with this is if they stop you at 99, I'm wondering what'll happen. I'm probably gonna end up wasting a contract here when I do this because unless they give you the error anytime that you'd be going above 99, but otherwise it'll go to 97, allow me to use an additional contract that would normally be adding a plus 10, but it will only give me 2 of those 10 games. But either way, let's do it for the content, right? So I've oh really? Huh. Now let's get 17. Huh. All right, so cannot. That's interesting to know. I'm learning things. Sometimes I do these things, figuring that I've people tell me that they come off too professorial and too much like a know-it-all and stuff like that. But the reality is, plenty of times, especially if somebody comes into the room and asks a question, and I wasn't planning on getting onto that question, I say this is what I think. I don't know. Let me go check, and I go check, and I find out that it ends up being something either completely different or slightly different than I expected. And it's a pretty big surprise for me. I did not realize that they limited it so low. So cannot apply contract extension. You've reached the contract limit. Be applied until a later time. You can only click OK. So he's maxed at 17 on his rating for contracts. So now what I'm going to go do is see. Okay, I mean this isn't bad because McAvoy obviously I feel like is going to have a good chance of staying on for quite a bit as well. So this would bump him to 23. Are they going to allow me to do that? They did, and now if they didn't let me go on to 17, there's nothing wrong with my internet. Get out of here, Sony. There's no way they're going to let me do this. Okay, so he got to go to 23. He got to go to 17. I don't know how many Muzzin got left. He still plays quite a bit. Okay, so they're going to limit him to 12 then, as opposed to 22. I'm guessing is the point here. Okay. Wait. So yeah, then you can't go higher than 22. What did I'm so not completely flustered, but I'm a little bit thrown off with this. All right, so yeah, McAvoy they went to 23, so I'm guessing it's 25, right? So if you get a new card at 15, so we'll use Kachuk because I've never played with him, so we should have 15 games. I mean, this card for Brady specifically, I've not played with yet, so this would be a good one for me. I feel like because they're likely going to be able to bump you to 25, and I'm guessing that's the most that you can do. Okay, and then they're never letting me add on from here. So there you go. So there's the true contract limit. It's actually 25 games, as opposed to I just kind of assumed it would have been like FIFA and it would be 99. But part of the thing that's kind of interesting for me, at least, is that this particular card, as you see there, it's 17, and again, I can show you from the apply consumable page as well. It limits him to 17 as opposed to 25, so he technically has 8 less games left on his contract than the Kachuk does, and you compare that to the McAvoy that was at 23, and then was it the Muzzin that I did that was 20 something also, I think. So it definitely does not allow you to put any amount above the 25. I guess I will. I don't really want to do this, especially for this lineup, but let's look for somebody who has exactly 14 or 4. Either one of those will work. Reeves is so close, and Reeves is actually playing on my team at the moment, I think. And Lundqvist, who I was showing with this, I got so flushed I forgot that I was even using him at the beginning. So he had 5. And then Forsberg is a, so Kakami's close as well, but not quite there. Someone in the room, welcome to it. So I just learned something, whoever's just came into the room, that when you're going to add, apply consumables to player cards that have not run out of their contracts yet, that the game limits you. They can't ever have more than 25 games remaining on their contract. So for example, I don't really want to do it with this Chelios because I'm not sure I'm gonna play 21 more games with him. Even though I know I am for sure playing this next game with him. And he's a 90 overall untradeable, so it's not like I'm going to be selling it or putting it into a reroll. But yeah, I don't know. All right, whatever. I'll just do it. So I add 10, I get 11, and then I doubled down on my 11, and I spiked my blackjack at 21, and I cannot add above that. So apparently anything from any current rating of 16 games to 24 games, or 25 actually. Who's the Kachuk? It's got the exact 25. Get back into that one. So anything from 14 would let you add it. 15 would as well. So anything 16 to 25, they'll give you this error when you go to do it, not allowing you to get above 25. I know I'm all over the place at the moment. Let's just double check here real quick to see if I've got anybody who has. Why did I was looking for 4. I don't know why. I think I was looking for 4 just so that I could show somebody getting to 24 and not being able to add from there. It doesn't matter really. Honestly, it doesn't matter. So let's get back to the actual point here, if we could, which is just to find out the derivative value and the coin cost to you of playing any one particular game. So I'll do it from this screen and go back into seeing if it's been a week for me to buy that pack in the store. So to me it does not matter how many games a player currently has quote unquote left on their contract. Apparently anywhere from 1 to 25 is they could be 0, they could be out of contracts, I guess. So anywhere from 0 to 25 is the range that they could be in. You can't get any higher than that, and then once it gets to 0, they're at 0. You can't play any more games. You can't go like negative or something weird like that. So 0 to 25 is what every single card in the game will have. There were plenty of cards like that Kachuk that you saw. I'd never touched them. He had 15 games to start with. There are plenty of cards that started with 15. I've also seen cards that seem like they're starting with 10 games on their contract when you pack them or pull them or otherwise get them onto your team. I don't really know what that's about, or if there was a change that was made at some point to move cards from 15 to 10. I honestly couldn't tell you, but the point is it's going to be one of those two for sure. And if we just assume that, like the Kachuk, that they're all 15, then it is what it is. You'd have to play 15 games with them to bring them down to 0 to then have to add more contracts onto them. Point being, no matter what the number of contracts are that are left on that game, and again, you can add one of these, and it says right on the actual card, it says 10. It doesn't say plus 10 or whatever, but it says 10 games contract. There's very few cards in the game. Healing says healing 3 games. Most people don't even bother to pay attention to how many games a person is hurt for, and I'm sure I'm going to jinx myself now, but I've not had anybody get hurt for more than 3 games, which is absolutely a very common thing that happens in their other game in FIFA. So I don't know, C, apply captain, and then That was silly of me. So I guess the A's are going to be in here too. So yeah, A, apply alternative captain. So I guess those kind of do say what they are. I've looked at jersey numbers so often, and I don't think that I've ever even noticed that it says change above it. I was hoping that one of these would indicate something that wasn't quite as obvious when you're adding on. But all right, so this one just says celebration, and then the name of the celebration. So that's I guess the least descriptive of all them. But here I think it's pretty obvious what you're doing is you're adding 10 games by using a contract card. That was really all we were trying to point out here is that when you go to apply consumable, it's adding those games. And then just for me at least, I kind of feel like if you've got whether you've got 1,600 of these things or whether you've got 16 of them, if you have a mix of untradeable and tradable, and you have to use a contract card because that's your team, and there's at least one player in your team that needs to have their contract extended to play the game. I, I I feel like the GTO thing to do every single time that you can is to come in here to apply consumable as opposed to being on this page and clicking, the quick apply, which it doesn't even let you do, um, if you don't need it. But if you do need at least one to let you do all the contracts or all the healing at one time. I've never gone into. Wow. Okay. Learning a bunch of stuff today. I've literally never clicked on consumables managers before. So 1600 contract zone, 352 healing item zone. His remaining contracts 17 games and injured 0 games. This is much better. I don't know why. This would have been this would have been way better for the. You can see FNUF and Nurse I've never used, so they're also at 15 the same way that Brady Kachuk was. Um, yeah, this seems much better than me going through each one of them individually. I'm probably going to use this in the future. That's quite helpful. Thank you for that. Now I just click O. Cool. All right, I'm back out. Good to know. So instead of doing that, I think the GTO thing to do is to click X, click on Apply Consumable. Particularly if you come in here ever and you see like your first 3 or 4 of them are tradable ones, but you go all the way over and you see some untradable ones. It might seem like way too much effort, and I definitely don't do the GTO thing every single time. I use the quick apply way more often than I use the apply. But I still feel like the GTO thing to do is to click on apply, come in here, and literally put on one that has an untradeable instead of using one of your tradables. If you're never ever going to sell them, if you're never ever going to quick sell them, if you're only going to consume them and use them, then yes, technically they're the same to you, even though they're still technically not homogeneous and worth the same. But so I think if you have the whatever it is, the 30 seconds as opposed to the 30 minutes that I've been doing this video, to go ahead and do that, it's the way to go. So let's bring this back home to where we need to go and finish this up real quick here. So the point is, every single time you use one of these, you're adding 10 contracts onto it. And as we've already shown here, you have to have 15 contracts or less to be able. Just as a reiteration, as I try to add one here, you can't do it because he's at 17. That would put him at 27, which is above 25. None of that is working for you. None of that is any good. So anything 15 or down to 0, you can go ahead and add that. If you're like me, most of the time I don't bother with these until somebody is out of contracts, as it might seem pretty obvious having looked at the players that are on this makeshift squad for this one game that I was looking to play. There's at least 2 or 3 of them that are down to their final contract, or their final game on their contract, if you want to word it that way. But part of that is also that very few of these players, with the one on your screen here being an exception, are actually on my real team at the moment. So just pointing out again, the actual contract card itself adds 10 games to that one player. Okay, so now you can't apply contracts to all of your team at one time with a single card. You can use the quick apply if you have every single one of your players on your team who's out of contracts, and quick apply all those with essentially 1 or 2 well, it's at least 2 clicks. But that would use, which is kind of my overall point, you'd be using a contract for every single player, and so that would be all 12 of your forwards, all 8 of your defenders, and both of your goalies. So you'd essentially be using 20 of these cards to add contracts to every single position player and your 2 goalies, every single player card in that particular lineup. So we're going to use that as the explanation of how you get to a coin cost from a derivative value for every game, right? Is that if you were actually applying one of these contract cards that add 10 games every time you use it in across the board for every single player card that you have out there, that's 20 of those. And we've shown, I'm going to go back to the store to prove this, but we've shown that these particular cards cost 100 coins per card, because in the store you can get 20 of them at one time for a cost of 2,000 coins. 2,000 coins divided by 20 gets you your 10. Sorry. 2,000 coins divided by 20 gets you your 100 coins. And then as you see here, that's for one card, and every card gives you 10 contracts. So every game is effectively 10 coins per player, and there are 20 players when you include the goalies, or 20 player cards in any given lineup. So when you play that game, it pulls one game off of your remaining contracts, and from a derivative value, as far as how you factor in the cost of the contract cards that are used to get you those games, it's 10 coins per player across 20 players. That's 200 coins is your derivative value of your coin cost to you in every game that you play. I understand there's only so much that I can show you here without being able to point and put up little arrows and stuff like that. But again, look at the card here, 10 games contract. You see the middle there, the plus 10 modifier. That's what it is for every single one of these. Unfortunately, I don't have, because I just don't really have a ton of cards outside of those that are actually playing on my team. And I also don't really do much in terms of holding on to cards after they've become expired. But if I could, I would, and maybe if I play this one game and get all the hits done, that's going to be at least 2 or 3 players that'll be down to their expiring their contract. Unfortunately, I just added on to 2 that were out that are on that particular team there, that lineup. And there were a couple others that were pretty low that I added on while doing this whole thing as well. But the point is, like, that there would maybe be an okay thing for me to do is to try to see if I could find a way to get a full group of 20 cards that are all have expired contracts to use a quick apply to make this more clear. But okay, we're gonna finish up here. Last 2 seconds. Hopefully you can see this very clearly. I showed this earlier. This is how we got started. It's in the store right now, supposedly only available for the next 10 days. I'd imagine it would come back at some point. I don't know if they do a different version. So far, I have not seen any NHL 20 store packs come out in different versions or different costs. I'm not trying to go off in too much of a sort of rabbit hole here, but this current event, the Young Stars Fruit Punch Pack, I pointed this out when this event first came out, is that based off of kind of what you could expect from the pack in terms of odds, etc., 20 items, at least 10 players, at least 180 plus. Very similar to the same types of packs in previous events that were listed on the far left for special packs, and a slight difference in the cost there. It was 17,500 coins or 375 points. So a little bit of a difference going into this event for what seemed to me to be a very similar type of pack, not exactly the same, and clearly the event cards that were available during that event were totally different than the previous event, despite what people say about every one of them feeling like just kind of cookie cutter and doing the same thing as previous ones. The truth is, whether it's these premium players packs that are here right now, the mega packs that were here yesterday, the essentials that effectively never change, and then this one potentially going away. I guess that there could be a different contracts pack that they would add later, which would have a different number of contracts. They could also decide that there's that people would be willing to pay a higher coin value. So to get this exact pack of 20 gold contracts, they could potentially charge you 2,500, 3,000, all the way up to probably 4,000 coins for those 20 gold contracts, and people would absolutely buy them. So I guess there's a possibility of that happening, but I'm just pointing that out that there've been no instances of packs that have been available in the store that have a listed coin value, point value, and general contents expectations as far as drop rates that has changed. So previous versions of the premium players pack being out there, it consists of the same things, the same expectations. 80 plus being 100% is kind of the only guarantee. Besides the fact that you're getting 10 total items and they're all gold players, they're all technically 74 and up. Those things have always been guaranteed, and the cost of 22,500 coins or 450 points has been the same. Okay, so just pointing that out there, that technically it's indicating time remaining is 9 days and 14 hours from right this moment. When that ends, I don't know, couldn't tell you. I've got no inside information. I know no one that even plays the game, let alone anybody that builds and works on the game. But this particular pack could just go away at that time and then seem like it's like never going to come back. It might take another, I don't know, might take another couple months before they bring it back at all. It's been available for this entire month, even though it only lets you buy once per week. So to try to finish this up, give myself a timestamp on this because that feels like an hour. That person left as well. Good to know. Okay, so 38 minutes. Not quite as bad, but still pretty bad. So I'm gonna go ahead and see if I can buy this. Hopefully I've made all that very clear. Sorry that I went 40 minutes when I was thinking I could have got this done in about 4 minutes. But again, because this store pack exists, for me it's way easier, and it makes a ton more sense to come up with a derivative value based on how much it's going to cost you to get this in the store, as opposed to going off of valuations in the market. That the second of those two things, the latter of those two things, I can definitely do. I have done for other things. It just gets a bit more squirrely in that because not just because there's fluctuation and all that, but it's not quite as tight, not quite as finite as this happens to be. It's pretty well defined here. The fact that you can't just buy like an unlimited amount of these, or that they don't limit it to, say, just like a total of like 100 per account or something like that, as opposed to the way they've opted to do it, which is it's available for a month and you can get one per week. You should be able to get 4 of them off during the month that they listed it. I'm not sure if people have actually been able to do that or even been willing to. None of that really matters. The point is, it's 2,000 coins. You could also use points, which is basically 40 cents US dollars per pack. But we're just sticking with the coins. So the coin cost for you, again, you're getting 2,000 coins, getting 20 items, so it's 100 coins per card. I showed the card. The card gives you 10 contracts that you can add to any one particular player. I got nothing to do with the fact that the pack has 20 contracts and then your team has 20 player cards. Again, it's the same as actual hockey, right? So there's 4 lines of 3 forwards for 12 forwards total, and did I say that right? And then there's 3 open, and there's 3 lines of 2 defenders on the defensive side. That's 6. So 12 and 6 gets you 18. You got 2 goalies, so that's 20. Right, so there's 20 player cards in any particular lineup at any one particular time. There also happens to be exactly 20 gold contracts that are available here. So in some sort of weird way, if you, I don't know, this might not be the worst strategy in the world to do, but if you effectively had a starter team from when you joined the game, and especially if you joined the game like today, then you got whatever you got from your starters, and those were your 20 cards. You're just going to kind of ride or die with them the entire year. Um, yeah, I actually don't think that would be the worst strategy in the world, and it's not even really the worst strategy to do that, even if you are playing, from September 10th, like myself and plenty of others did this year as well. Um, and then, obviously, if you get things, however you get packs or whatever from playing the game, if you get those things, and if they're untradeable, you put them into rerolls or their sets or whatever, and if they're not, get some coins out of them or something like that. I don't know. That's very the opposite of how I play the game, but I don't think it's the worst strategy in the world to do. And if you do that, I mean, it's basically hypothetical for me, but I'm sure somebody's done it, right? That if that's how you've played, is that you start with your top 20, and then you're just going to kind of ride them into the ground. They should, again, they're going to start with at least 10 games on their contract for every one of those cards. They could have all been 15. It doesn't really matter. The point is, they should have all had the same number of contracts to start with, and that's your team, and you never change your team. Is that once you get through X number of games, let's just make it 10 to start off with. Once you get those first 10 games, all 20 of your player cards are now going to need contracts to be able to move into the next game. And admittedly, this pack was not available at that time at the beginning of the year. But again, if you just started yesterday, this pack has been here this whole time. And so now that you're expired, you got those 20 player cards, and those are essentially the only ones that you're using. They're all expired. You can literally come in here, buy this pack, get your 20 gold contracts, and add on, 10 more games for every one of your 20 players that you've got in those player cards. And again, I say players, and I'm including not just position players, but the two goalies in that as well. That has nothing to do with me. I didn't make it so you get 20 gold contracts in the pack, and that's the exact same as the number of player cards that you show on your team or anything like that. It just is what it is, right? So my only real point was 40 minutes later. This is so stupid. 2,000 coins, 20 items in the pack, so it's 100 coins per item in the pack, which are gold contracts that give you 10 games added to a particular player card. So you take that 100 coins, divide that by another 10 to get a per game coin cost of the contract cards coming from the original 2,000 coins that this pack costs you to get them in a group. And that's 10 coins for that one card. And again, you got 20 cards playing in every single game. Every game that you play will take one game off of their existing number of games left on their quote unquote contract. So the way I look at that is 10 coins per player card, 20 player cards playing every game. So every game has a 200 coin cost to you per game as a minimum. Okay, so the as a minimum is a bit of an asterisk there. I talked briefly in the it wasn't not, nothing I do was brief, but I talked in the beginning about how and why that's going to generally tend to trend above 100 coins per card and therefore above 10 coins per player, and why all those numbers are going to be effectively higher than that is. But that's the minimum. That's the minimum cost that you're going to see is effectively 200 coins played per game. Okay, now if you got all the way to this point 40 minutes in, even though I already gave out that number a little bit earlier on in this quote unquote live stream, live broadcast that you're watching later as a replay, and you might be thinking, okay, why did you do that? That was completely stupid. It's thanks for the info. I hadn't really maybe crunched the numbers, even though again none of that required a calculator of any form. But thanks for that. But basically, who cares really, right? Well, I'm not saying that anybody does care or that you should care, but that's the info for you. And part of the reason in pointing this out is that there are plenty of games that you can play that where this matters, which is effectively only HUT. There are plenty of games within HUT, especially with all the kind of new versions, new modes of gameplay within HUT that have been added this year. There are plenty of different ways to play games still within the confines of HUT that are going to pull a use of a game remaining on a player's card's contracts every game that you play, and not every one of those games they're not created equal in terms of kind of the minimum or the maximum of what you can get out of playing any one of those particular games. And without getting too much into that, most of the modes are designed in such a way that a single play of one game only of one mode and one event or whatever within that mode is generally going to have almost no value for you as the player, as the gamer, um, for that one game. Just across the board, usually it's going to require a minimum of 3 games within the confines of that particular event to get off. The side action, the hut challenges, and things like that, that's technically a game, and there are some benefits usually from that if you can complete whatever the objectives are when you're trying to complete that game. And in fact, there's plenty of them that you can do that give you that literally give you coins back for having completed those objectives in those games. There is a limit. It's effectively, you know, pardon me. I don't know. I think it's like it's at least. For some reason, I was thinking it was 75 under each difficulty level. So like 75 rookie, um, semi-pro, pro, all-star, superstar. So those five. So five times 75 or 450. That feels like a lot. Feels like a high number, but I think that's pretty close. And then there are the event hut challenges that come as well, and those generally have been where there's 10 event challenges when the event launches, and then generally about up to another 10 more that get added after that. Of late, they've been listed as weekday challenges. So the types of things in which they're set up so that there'll be 10 different weekdays that will go off while that event is still active. And the event right now, obviously, being the Young Stars event. Um, so yeah, I guess during a particular event, you could have an additional 20 hut challenges available to you. The thing that definitely does kind of suck for you as a player is that one of two things can happen. Um, you could have a particular hut challenge that might only have one specific objective listed for it that you have to complete to get that done and get whatever the reward is. There's always at least one reward or some type of reward from every single game in those hut challenges, the offline mode. Um, but if you don't get it and you finish the game, you effectively you don't get that reward. You might get other things towards your daily objectives and stuff like that, but if you just go off of the assumption that you've already completed your dailies and your weeklies, and there's no other extra benefits, and those things like shots on goal and hits and things like that don't count in those modes the way that they do in online or competitive. You can definitely find yourself having spent not only the time, energy, effort, or whatever to try to get that objective done, and you don't complete the objective. Say you needed to get 20, I'm sorry, you need to get 10 shots on goal, and you got exactly 9. You're one short. It's very cut and dry. It's very binary. Either you do get it or you don't. So 9 is not 10. You don't get it. You played a game. You didn't get that thing. That attempt cost you 200 coins across all of your players to be able to try to get it. Didn't happen. You got to play again if you want to try to get that thing completed. So now getting into that second one, now you're talking about a cost of 400 coins across all your players that you're playing in those particular games. And while there are quite a few mode types that should be able to get you more than 400 coins back in return for it, there have been plenty of people over the years that have talked about whether it's hut challenges or other things, quote unquote grinding certain aspects of the game as a way to build up their coin values. And I think part of me doing this was just kind of showing the reality to either newer players, because it seems like I've been contacted by tons of people who are either new this year or maybe new last year, and maybe kind of new towards the latter half of the year last year, and don't necessarily have 100% on certain aspects of the game or whatever. And I obviously don't know anywhere close to everything. I had no idea that they were limiting us this year to not being able to max out above 25. And as I had suspected when I thought that they'd max the way they do in FIFA at 99, that once you got um, uh, above, 90 and above as far as your number of contracts, they wouldn't allow you to add another 10 on top of that because you'd be going above 100 and they'd be having that fixed limit at 99. I was somewhat concerned, and I stated this if you go back 35 minutes ago. I did state that I was somewhat concerned you get up to like 98 and it would, in the code, etc., would say in the back end that you wouldn't see, like, if 99, then no. If not, then then add 10. But if, that's not how we worded it. I'm saying it in a very stupid way, but the first part of that could have been close to the code. The second half I just butchered, but it would do a check as well before adding that 10 to say, well, if um, basically just pointing out that whatever the amount is, if it's between 90 to 98 and it goes to add 10, it would only actually turn it into 99. So they would do the check between, you know, plus 10 equals whatever and just call it X. And if X is above 99, then the result just becomes 99. Wasn't planning on getting into a coding thing here, but I guess I just found my way in. It's not actually how this game works because they're actually limiting you at 25. So in fact, it's exactly what I just said, except that you substitute instead of 99, you substitute the 25 as being the upper limit. And so as long as you're not at the upper limit exactly at 25, then it sort of indicates that you'd be able to apply the consumable. However, we showed in here that it doesn't allow you to kind of apply a partial consumable. So you actually have to have 15 games or fewer left on your contract. So again, anywhere as low as 0, as high as 15, anywhere in that range, you can add a contract consumable onto that particular player card. But anything above that, anything from 16 all the way up to 25, you can't add. And it gives you the error. I showed it like 4 times. It's new to me. I've never seen that. I've never tried to do that. I've never had a reason to even think to try to do it before. But it does not allow you to do that. It gives you the error, and so that's kind of good, I think, especially if you're not really paying attention to what you're doing. If you're accidentally adding on consumables, if you're, kind of, I don't know, if you're sort of sleepwalking while you're playing the game or something like that, it's kind of good that you don't go through, thousands of consumables on a particular player card, especially if it's somebody that you don't even plan on playing with or whatever. So I think the limit is generally a good idea, and I also am behind the idea of not allowing partial use. So that'd be, again, if they're going to set the upper limit at 25 and you're at 24, and you go to add 10, and it allows you to click through and add them on, and you assume that you're going to go from 24 to 34 because the card says you're adding on 10 games, and you click through and you apply it and you go from 24 to 25, and you took a card that's supposed to be adding 10 games and you only got 1 game out of it. Well, that seems pretty problematic for me. Even this being pretty much the most mundane, the most pedestrian, the most basic, the stupidest thing in the world to talk about in this game. I just spent an hour doing it. But it's, it is what it is. So I just wanted to point that out, and I'm going to hammer it home for the millionth time, and I'm going to end by trying to purchase this pack and not remembering when the last time was that I got this. I've done it, I think, at least twice so far in the month this has been out. But again, 2,000 coins in this pack. As you see up in the top left, the pack contains 20 gold contracts. You see on the bottom, it says 20 items. Odds just says 100% gold contracts. So again, 2,000 coins for 20 gold contracts. They are uh, untradeable, so factor that in to your how you play things, whatever. But again, it's 100 coins per contract card. Each contract card gives you 10 games for a player card. So um, one other way of looking at this in a slightly bigger picture way is that again, if you're playing with the exact same squad, uh, ride or die from the first day to the end day or whatever, they're always going to run out of contracts at the same time. And so when they run out of contracts, you add the quick apply contracts onto all those. So you're effectively adding one of these packs to your entire team every time you do that, right? So every time you apply those contracts, you're doing it across the board for all 20 of those player cards. So again, all 12 forwards, your 6 defensemen, it's 18 plus 2 for your goalies, it's 20. So you're applying one of these packs to your entire team. It's got a total cost of 2,000 coins applied for those 20 player cards. That's going to get you an additional 10 games. So it's pretty easy to figure that one out as well, in my opinion. You take that 2,000 coins, you divide by 20, and you get, pardon me, you get 100 coins. So that's kind of the two different ways to look at the exact same thing, and it just works out that way that the pack is 20 contracts, and that the number of cards that you can have active in a lineup is the same as real life, which is 20. It wouldn't surprise me at all if they thought through all of that when creating this, because it's a little bit different than how they've allowed you to more or less purchase contracts from them through the store this year compared to how they did last year. Um, but yeah, so it'd be a total cost of 2,000 coins for the pack. Again, you can only buy one per week, whatever, it doesn't matter, it's not the point. And you add that to your team, and your team has 20 players on it. You can use every single one of those player item cards. So the total cost of 2,000, but it does give you 10 additional games for all of those 20 players. So you look at that cost of 2,000 coins to get it to a per game cost. You're just dividing by 10. 2,000 divided by 10 is 200. So for the millionth time, it's a 200 coin cost for you per game at a minimum. It can be more. And so that's just something to think about before you go in. And I get that this is super basic, super pedestrian, just basically super stupid for me to have spent even more than 2 minutes on this, let alone close to an hour now probably. But if you're thinking about whether it's a good idea to go into a game, even if you're like me sitting at 1,600 of these contract cards right now before I hopefully be able to buy another 20 here, I still think that for me, it's something that I should have in the back of my mind that I at least, even if it's just sort of instinctual and I just kind of do it without even really thinking, I should still have in the back of my mind to think for half a second about the fact of like, hey, that game I'm about to jump into, that's going to effectively cost me 200 coins, only as far as how much it costs for contract packs. It says nothing of whether somebody gets hurt. It says nothing in terms of any other sort of potential costs to you from having done it, playing one type of game in one game mode compared to a different game mode, all under the confines of HUT, and therefore um, relegated to how this all works with coin costs and stuff like that. And again, realizing that some things like the offline HUT challenges generally going to be able to give you coins back as a result from having played the game, and most of the time, especially if you're getting all three of the objectives done, even on rookie, they're usually going to give you more than 200 coins if you complete all three of those objectives. But there are plenty of other games that you're going to play and that you probably have already played this year in NHL 20. Whether you felt satisfied, whether you felt like you did well, whether you won the game, whether you completed whatever it was you were trying to complete in that one particular game or not. And then obviously in those particular cases, if it's part of one of, say, maybe 20 games or whatever that you got to play, could be as low as 3 or 5 or whatever, but you have to string that number through to be able to even just quote unquote qualify for whatever it is that you're trying to complete. I think it's worthwhile to factor in, again, the fact that it costs you 200 coins to play every one of those games. So As I said, just real quick, the ones that I have off the top of my head that are 3 games, 5 games, and 20 games that you're going to play to get those done. If they give you a coin, kind of like player rating, where you get coins as a result of having completed the game, then great. And if you actually do complete it, as opposed to going ahead and quitting because you're never going to get a chance to win the game, and you can spend your time more wisely somewhere else. Usually, if you're in that kind of a spot, you're not super concerned about your per game coin cost from a contracts perspective. Still true for you though. So if it's 3 games minimum that you're gonna have to do, obviously all this is pretty simple math here. 200 coins per game times 3 is gonna get you 600 coins to get that done. You look at what you could potentially get out of that. Is it worth it? A minimum of 600 coins for you to complete that. The other one that costs you 5 games to qualify, it's not that much higher, but now you're talking about 1,000 coins just on a contract perspective that would cost you in terms of coins to qualify for that event. Are you getting something back that's at least 1,000 coins? And you can see to the left here in the essentials, at a minimum, if you're getting even just a base pack back as a result of having played either those 3 or 5 games, just on the bare minimum of contract cost to play those games, yeah, it makes sense. If it costs you either 600 coins or 1,000 coins, and you get a base pack, showing it right here, it's 5,000 coins in the store for you to get that pack. Um, so if you just think of it that way, then it seems like it was probably a good idea for you to have done that. If you're going for some of the other bigger things that require you to play, especially if you're trying to qualify at a higher level, to require you to play 20 games to kind of qualify for those rewards. Again, whether they're giving you coins back each game that you play during the course of the event or not, um, it's still per game going to cost you 200 coins, and you're doing it 20 times. Pardon me. So in those cases, you're actually, pardon me. In those cases, you're actually talking about 4,000 coins is how much it would cost you to go through those from a contract perspective. And again, you should probably be getting at least a base pack out of that. And so, from just a contracts perspective, it really should be worth it for you to have done that. The only thing that I would kind of caution on that is that if you're going into things with the mindset of simply sort of just quitting out maybe at the very beginning of a game and just having the quote unquote game count towards your 3, 5, 20, whatever it is you got to do for that particular event. If you don't complete, there's almost I can't say there's very few things in this game that are 100%, but this is one of those that's as close to 100% as possible. Is that if you quit, in many cases, almost at any point in the game, it's not only that you're not going to get any coins back as far as your gameplay rating at the end of the game, but you're also very unlikely to be able to get. I don't think you do at all, but you're very unlikely to get anything as far as completionist stuff. So as far as milestones, even if you are playing online or competitive event, and maybe you had, I don't know, maybe you had like 2,000 shots on goal and 1,000 hits, uh, and there was 5 minutes left in the third period, but you were down by 10 goals, and you're like, I'm not going to win. I'd rather just quit out. And you quit out. I believe you don't get credit. I'm fairly certain on this that you don't get any credit at all for the anything that you would have had as far as stats in that game, because you did not finish. It doesn't count as a completed game for sure. I know that part at least. And from what I've seen, you don't get anything added in terms of your shots on goal or hits or anything else that you might be tabulating and adding up for your milestones or other stuff like that as well. So again, if you're either going into a game with the intention of quitting out instantly, or whether you end up quitting out at some point, and particularly if it's going to be one that not only gives you credits towards milestones or daily or weekly or event objectives, but also any of those that can do any of those things, but also give you coins back as far as how you played in that particular game. You're kind of missing out on all those things when you go ahead and quit out. And this isn't a hashtag don't quit out sort of thing, but I'm just pointing that out when you're factoring in how you think about these things. The sort of irrefutable aspect of this is that it's a 200 coin cost to you per game, every game that you play that requires a contract, which is the vast majority of games that you're going to play under the confines of HUT. And that's at a minimum. It can cost you more, and that is only the cost in terms of the contracts pack. So now that we're at probably an hour, let's go ahead and see if I can open up this pack and have it be the finale to this replay. I'm very, very sorry that they went as long as it did. If you're an editor or something, and you get to this point where somebody sends this to you and says, "Hey, just listen to the last 3 minutes of this," so now you're hearing what I'm saying right now. If you're an editor and can just are willing to work this down to take the what I assume is an hour now of this and turn it into the probably 3.5 minutes of actual content and point, I'd be more than happy to have you do that. I kind of felt like it would be better to have the visual aspects of the game up as I talked through it, as opposed to just I literally could have just sent this out in a tweet, a single tweet that said, "Hey, it costs you 200 coins per game." As far as the derivative value of how much you can buy 20 contracts in the store for. I don't know how it would have been better just in terms of much more brief. It would have taken up much less of my time and anybody else's time that's gotten to this point in the video tomorrow. So anyways, let's open up this if we can. And whether we can or not, that's going to be the end of the video. But let's go ahead and see if we can open it. We can. Okay, it's fun. It's just, it's whatever. So there you go. Like 20 gold contracts, 10 games, again, added for each one of these. Because they are untradeable, the quick sell is 0. Something to keep in mind. It'd be pretty silly, I feel like, to open up a pack for 2,000 coins and then turn around and sell those 20 at 80 coins per. I guess if you were trying to convert your points into coins, that having these as a tradable thing would have made that whole process a little bit easier. That's basically just like points to coins money laundering, but whatever. Do your own thing, I guess. But here you go, you get 20 of these untradeable, as we said, 2,000 coins per. So the one you're looking at here, this one, I'm going to send just this one to the collection. So that one that just went away, that's 100 coin cost for each one of those from the store. We're going to send them all to the collection. It's going to pop us back into the store. Just to reiterate, because this doesn't say anything about it here, and it's no longer kind of up on the main screen. But you can't open more than one. See, so that's it. But I'm gonna go. Peace out. Have a good night.